it's not that I have an aversion to love. It's just that I have different priorities that I never got to really explore, and I've been using this time in my life to explore them. And I wanted to kind of explain like why my content up until this point, and probably in future, might seem like it's very revolved around understanding myself sexually, or understanding like what it's like to have the best sexual connection with somebody. And like, if you're just looking at this from a purely like sexual point, it's like, oh, that's so vulgar. Like, why are you just talking about sex to talk about sex? Well, I'm not. I'm talking about sex because and everything that revolves around it. I'm talking about my experience and how I've progressed during my little journey of finding a more satisfying sexual experience with somebody, because I didn't really get to experience that during the beginning of my adult life. And I find that a really important pillar of somebody's health, if you're like sexually like happy or satisfied, or on some sort of path to like explore that. Like I think that there are several different ways to think about sex in our society, and I think two of the ways that our society currently kind of understands it is that they're on very different extremes. There's like, everybody understands what porn sex is like. It's like thought to be just like raunchy, and there's not a lot of feeling of love involved there. It's like very like one night standy, but almost to the part where like it doesn't even matter if you even know the person. Like, you just like, it's very emotion detached kind of thing, and it's very like raw and like that kind of stuff, right? It's like just very carnal. And then there's the idea of like rose petals and candles and sensual music and like relaxing kind of like atmosphere, and like dimming the lights, and like over the top but over the top stuff that like, it really equals, there's an understanding, there's a high level of emotional connection during that type of thing, and it usually involves love. And so you see that there's a massive difference between those extremes. No connection emotionally versus everybody kind of is like, well, that over here is a lot better than this porn kind of thing that's very detached and just seems very usy. I think there's so much to explore between those two, and there's so much to explore even at the ends of those extremes anyways. So I came to the conclusion that I wanted to explore what it was like for me personally, what it was like for me to pursue something that I thought was sexy, what it was like for me to pursue something that I like enjoyed. There's so much to having sex with somebody for me that's like, it's not just what my body is doing, it's like what my mind is doing, what the context of everything is, how mentally prepared I am with like my confidence level and everything that went into my confidence level, how I perceive the other person in terms of like, do I believe that I can have a good experience with them, or do I believe that I can't? There's so much to it. It's not just like, pick somebody that you're in love with and you're going to have like crazy great sex. It's not just pick somebody who's hot and you're gonna have crazy good sex. Like the porn thing and like the love bathtub rose petals thing would make you believe, or made me believe, that those two extremes are how you get good sex. You either have to find somebody who's super hot, give you a porn kind of experience, or you have to find somebody that super loves you and you have a nice romantic connection. I was in love with somebody for a very long time that I thought loved me back, and I had unsatisfying sexual experience with them the entire time. So I knew for a fact that just because you're in love with somebody does not mean that you're going to have great sex. But I've also had sex with people where I thought they were so hot, like physically, just their body, but like their brain was like, might as well have been cooked. Like there was just nothing there for me as far as like anything outside of their looks, and it was bad sex. So the process on how to have a good sexual experience and how to build sexual chemistry in the way that I like, and how to go about that in a way that seemed authentic to me, is what I've been doing for like a long time. And like my whole Tinder dates were like not to find a boyfriend, they were to find good sex. Like what would I pick? If you had to like answer this question for yourself, it's like, if you wanted to have the best sexual experience ever, what would be like the components of that? And then once you have that list, would you have the balls to go have a little social experiment and go do that? And then like take what you found from the real world, not just like your brain and the list, take what you found in the real world, and then to alter your list, and then try again, have another experiment, alter your list, try again, just to get closer and closer and closer to what you believed might be a very satisfying sexual experience for you. Because there's what you believe and there's what you experience. I previously thought some sexual acts I would never like. I would just think that they would be like kind of gross. I wasn't into them. And then I would experience them, and then I'd be like, wow, that was mind-blowing. If I had just been open-minded enough, I would have put that on my list, and I would like, you know, wanted to pursue people more intentionally for that specific thing that they provided, right? Like that just worked for me with my body. And the more and more experience that I got, choosing for this purpose rather than to find a boyfriend that loves me, or rather than just to find somebody that was hot. Like I'm avoiding both those extremes. I'm avoiding the porn, and I'm avoiding the love bathtub pedal thing. I'm avoiding those extremes, and I'm trying to find the path in between. Maybe it has a little bit of porny stuff, maybe it has a little bit of love stuff, and maybe that's going to be different with every single person that I come in contact with that wants to kind of experiment with me a little bit, or where I am in my development. My confidence can play a part. As I get older, I become more kind of like myself. So what I thought would be pleasurable maybe 5 years ago is not the same as what I thought would be pleasurable now, but to allow that whole thing to morph. And I find this super interesting. It's not vulgar to talk about what the process is on how to have a good experience with this thing that makes people connected to each other. Like, why does it only have to be thought of in terms of like icky? Or why does it only have to be thought of in terms of like it's connected to love and then that's okay? Like, to me, there's like a lot that goes along between that. I'm deep diving into like all the little things that go into how I can have a good, for me and for them, a sexual experience. But the emphasis is on me. For a long time, I told you that I had negative sexual experience for most of my life. Most of my sex having life. So it was really important to me to like kind of listen to myself, that I wanted to learn about this. It just feels authentic to talk about sex in a way that is like, this is something I'm working on, and this is why, because it's something that I'm working on, and it's something that I hold dear as like something that I'm trying to get better at, like actively pursuing this. And I've talked about all the other things that I've been actively pursuing, and so it just makes sense if this is, you know, it takes up a lot of my like time. It actually explains how I'm dating and why I'm dating. Like, I'm not dating to find, I've always said this, I'm not dating to find the love of my life. If I find that accidentally, great. I'm literally pursuing other people so that I can learn more about myself in this particular way, because you kind of need somebody else to do this with. Like, sex is one of those things that you kind of need someone else to do. You can't just like learn everything you need to learn about it by yourself. So like, if you ask yourself what makes a really hot connection for you sexually, I think everybody would have like a different list, and everybody would have different components of what makes that list easy to pursue or not easy to pursue, right? I think your confidence of going after what you want really plays into things. I think where you are with who you are really goes into things. Just a lot really goes into like how to actually intentionally improve this area of your life when you're not waiting. Here's the other thing, I'm not waiting until I found the perfect match in order to reach some level of satisfaction. I want to be able to like do that with people at any stage of my life, and I'm not waiting for love to happen. I think that's something that I got kind of like mixed up when I was younger, because like I didn't know that it was possible to have connections that were not at that level of commitment that produced good sexual experiences. I'm gonna kind of explain something. I don't really want to explain, but I'm gonna kind of explain something. Ouch. So for a long part of my life, my adult life, I had negative experiences having sex with the same person. The sex was so not fulfilling that I eventually had to get good at getting fulfillment some other way. And so therefore I adapted. Like, our sex was so not fulfilling for me for my needs that in order to keep having sex with my person that I was with, I needed to like gain something from it. I couldn't just like sit there and feel like I was used for 10 years. Like, I had to adapt somehow, or else I would just literally stop having sex. Like, there's no point to like signing up to be used often for years. There's no point to that, even for the most like martyr of a person. Like, if they're gonna have they're gonna reach like a breaking point. So the way that it kept going was because I was from a broken home where like people divorced, my parents divorced. I saw what that did to my family, and I saw how divorce had an impact on my siblings and I. And so I was of the idea that if I was with someone, mind you, this was my first boyfriend. I didn't really have any experience sexually or romantically with mostly any other person. I'd had sex with 2 people up until, you know, I was mid-30s. So I had very little experience outside of him. So I had the belief that if I was going to be in a relationship and it was going to get as committed as it did up until the point where we were engaged, therefore we were going to get married, that I was in it to be in it. I was not going to get married with the idea that I could always fall back on divorce, because I didn't want to do that to my family. I didn't want to do that, especially if I had children. I didn't want to go that route, and so it was a huge commitment to me, like, to just, if I was going to say yes to marrying this person, then I was going to say yes to everything that kind of came along with being with that person, because I was committing for life. Like, I didn't have like an escape plan kind of like already filed away if this didn't work out. I was just kind of like, I would adapt until I was until I got something out of it that I could just keep surviving. Like, I don't know why this was my thought pattern at that time, but I'm kind of explaining like everything that went on with it. So I don't know why I was that seriously committed to somebody at that age without that much experience, but that was my mindset. I did not want to be engaged with somebody knowing that I could probably divorce them if it didn't work out. I was full on committed. The level of commitment was like the highest that it could be. It was like for life for me at that point. And so I knew by the time that he asked me to marry him that our sex life was not good, and had been not good since forever, and it wasn't getting any better. And for me, and I was just kind of like frustrated, sexually frustrated. So I was getting different things from our sexual experience. I was getting experience like doing it, of course, but I was like not really getting anything out of it besides that. And in order for me to keep doing it, I would have to get something back from it. Like, you can't just give yourself like that for nothing and then kind of expect to be sort of mentally fine. I wasn't mentally fine, but I was like keeping myself from being really not mentally fine by like adapting and getting good at giving him pleasure. Like, understanding that I could do different things. Like, it would give me satisfaction to be somebody who could give pleasure well over a consistent basis. So like, I got something from that. Like, there is a thing in the world that's like people are happy to just give, right? That's like a form of adaptation that I did during my sexual beginning stages of how I like pursued things. So that was pretty monumental in like understanding like my dynamics of sex. Like, I enjoyed it up until a point, and then after, I knew that there was like something missing. There was like the reciprocation like missing back, and like the satisfaction of the giving could only get me so far. Like, it eventually kind of like got me to a wall. Like, I couldn't adapt past that point anymore. Like, my giving no longer gave me pleasure. Like, the knowing that I was like giving him pleasure in a great way, like in a like I did a good job, that kind of way, it didn't give me any more pleasure. Like, I eventually hit a wall with that. Like, my reward system didn't reward me anymore for that. There was no more adaptation. Like, it was just kind of empty, and it didn't like satisfy me on any level. But I'm trying to explain to you how you could have bad sex for like, you know, a decade and kind of like be okay with it. I was okay with it because I thought that I had to adapt in order to like just continue on with this. And I thought I should continue on with this because I'd already said yes. And I'd already said yes because he was all I knew. And then he was all I knew because he was my first boyfriend, and I had no other experience really before him. In college, I'd had one other sexual experience, and it was basically one night stand. And it was slightly different, but I was not in a relationship with that person, the one night stand person. And so it's not like I really had like multiple perspectives. I just had this is what love is, this is what sex is, this is what the experience is, and I'm just going to learn how to gain satisfaction from it and continue on if this is what I'm continuing on with. I was continuing on because some of the outside elements of being in a relationship were still good. On an intellectual level, me and this person were like best friends. There was never another person that could understand me quite like he could understand me, and I like him. So there was that connection. So there was never the emotional connection that was like based on trust and stuff, and there was never a sexual connection that was based on like mutual satisfaction. It was just those were lacking. But because I adapted and kind of like I kind of crossed off the sexual compatibility as like, well, I've already kind of signed up for this, and this is what I already knew about this person, so I'm not going to, just because I'm going to marry this person, like throw a big stink. Like I just kind of thought, well, this is, you know, you made your bed, you lie in it kind of thing. So I'd adapted to the point where I couldn't adapt anymore. I couldn't like just keep doing it. But the other parts of our relationship were like, they were and will be always good. We had amazing talks about philosophy and like all these things, and he was a kind person, like I said. It just wasn't fulfilling in like the ways that a significant other is fulfilling. So for a lot of different reasons, I just kind of let that be not very important, because the rest of everything was going kind of okay, but that major component of being a significant other of somebody was pretty broken. So once I got out of that relationship, I like no longer compromised on that, and I decided that I wanted to pursue what it was like to have a more healthy kind of connection with somebody that way. But I wanted to do it in a way that wasn't connected with love, because I was kind of blinded, I guess, by like what my sexual connection was supposed to be like, because I loved this person. It was very much messed up, and I wanted to do it more, it sounds like kind of like scientific, like without feelings, but like I'm a pretty feelings kind of person, and so I knew that I wasn't going to do it completely emotionless. Like I wasn't going to you know, take out every part of the emotional connection, but I wanted to like not be distracted by love and kind of convince myself that this was a good sexual connection. I wanted to judge the sexual connection just as it was. And so I wanted to put the sexual connection as a forefront, as like almost like empirically speaking, this was a good sexual encounter. Empirically speaking, this was not a good one, right? And I dated in an experimental way to see if I could get closer to something that I enjoyed. And like I learned that there's different levels of enjoyment in that pursuit. There's like, what do I enjoy emotionally? What do I enjoy mentally? I really hate my neighbors. They kind of stomp everywhere and they piss me off. And so if you hear them throughout this video, I'm sorry, that's them. But this is when I can film, so I'm sorry. I like get really pissed off about like very small things when it consistently happens. So, but I also don't have road rage. I never have road rage. I can handle a lot, but this happens every day. So, where was I? I thought that it was gonna be simple. I thought it was gonna be so simple. I thought it was going to be just find somebody that you are attracted to. And like, if you don't have any sexual baggage with them, like I was attracted to the person that I was with for so long. It wasn't that I was not attracted to them. And it wasn't like I didn't love them. And it wasn't like I didn't think that they loved me on some level. We did have an emotional connection. And so I knew that if I wanted to find a good sexual connection with somebody, that I was gonna have to do things different, but I was gonna have to do things completely different than I'd done previously. And so how do I do it? How do I have a better sexual experience for myself? So like, I thought in the very beginning, like I said, that you just go after somebody you find hot. Well, it was confusing to me that one night stands did not turn into multiple hangouts just for sex. Like it was like I was very much like, I'm going to go on these dates just for some sex so I could learn. And it was difficult for me to learn from anything when I would just have sex with them, and then they'd never call me again to have some more sex. Because even in the very beginning, I understood that if you want to get good at something with somebody, it has to be done multiple times. It was kind of frustrating for me, because I was like, what do I have to do in order for them to like continue having sex with me so I can learn? Like, I didn't care to continue it so that we could be in a relationship. I was just more selfish for my sexual goal, right? I was like not learning very much, because it was like there's not much you can conclude if there's not a lot of like data to take from. Like, you have a lot of data to take from if you go on multiple dates and you have multiple sex with this same person. Like, you begin to see a pattern of what you may or may not like, because sometimes, I don't know if this has happened for you, but this has happened for me, because I've been on dates where the first time you have sex with somebody, it's always like kind of exciting, but it's really nerve-wracking. And so maybe you don't have the best sexual experience, but I don't check them off as like, well, this was done, unless I get like the super ick vibe or something. So I usually just give it a little bit of time to like warm up, and sometimes it just like continues to tank, and then I can just move on. But sometimes it's very like exciting, and you can have super exciting sex like the 4th or 5th date or whatever, the 4th or 5th time that you hang out. So I knew that there was, even in the very beginning, I knew that there was a process to it. And I knew that like it involved hanging out with the same person multiple times, but like it also involved me picking the right people for my goal, and me kind of presenting myself to those right people or whatever. Like there was a stumbling process of like, how do you talk about that you want to have some sex and try to pursue some good sex with somebody and get you to like see you as well, this girl's gonna be easy to use, right? It's like, no, I still want to be respected. I'm not trying to find people to use me. Like, in fact, I'm trying to do the opposite, where it's like I want to like create a connection with you, but just for this, right? Like, most people don't understand that. They're like, oh, you're trying to date me so that we can be in love. It's like, no. No. I'm specifically not trying to do that, because I don't know what it's like to just have some sex, and I don't know what it's like to prioritize just this connection yet. I don't know what that's like, and I'm trying to do that. But like I said in the very beginning, there's two types of understanding that's very prevalent in our society. It's like the porn sex, or like the bathtub petals thing. Like, I was trying to pursue something kind of like a little bit more than no strings attached one time, but for the pursuit of learning, but not for the pursuit of like trying to be with you. It's sort of hard to explain to somebody, and it's like, why the hell would you want to do that? Well, because I do. And it was for me to understand what it was like mentally for me to like not confuse love and sex. It's like for me to understand what it's like to understand what my body and mind liked, and to like really listen to myself, and in like an honest way, without that kind of like clouding my brain, because it was very cloudy before, and I was like very confused on, you know, how far I should adapt to things, and my sexual identity was all like messed up as far as like, am I just a giver? Like I want to be a little bit of a taker. Like, I want this to be like a mutual thing. I don't want to be forever frustrated, and I know there's a better way to this. So I decided to like fully own it, and I decided to fully just commit to like the cause, and commit to like the pain of the process. And so I did that for like, I don't know, a while. And I learned that the more myself that I became, the better matches that I would attract that understood what I was doing. And like the less that I hid what I wanted from them, and the more open that I was about things, the better the results that I was getting. In the very beginning, I thought that I should pursue this as if I was like dating normally, with like, I think people really understand very non-complicated ways of dating, and I was trying to do it kind of what I thought was simple, but to other people I think it's complicated. Like to me, it's like, it's very open, and it's very like, it's very, there's game to it, but it's like an open game, like right in your face, and that's part of the game. A lot of the comments, on a side note, a lot of the comments that I've been getting lately are like, have to do with like respecting myself, almost in terms of like, well, if I went on a date with somebody and we had a one-night stand and then they ghosted me and then I wanted them again, that I wasn't respecting myself if I like kind of ignored the ghosting. But it's like, you don't get it. You don't get it that I just wanted to like get to a point of like familiarity with their bodies and them and their way that they are with me. So like the ghosting didn't really matter. I wasn't gonna be with them. Like I was just trying to have another date with them so I could experience a connection that I liked with them, because I liked that part with them. They just kind of didn't go on another date with me and they ended up ghosting me. So it's like, I am respecting myself. Not respecting myself was like pretending that I was getting something great out of a bad sexual experience for 10 years. That's not respecting myself. Not respecting myself would be like to be deluding myself that I could only have a good sexual experience with somebody if they fully loved me. Like that might be true for some people, because you can maybe only let yourself go like that, in that way, so vulnerably with somebody, if you're in a long-term relationship. But for me, my whole thing about my life is that like, I'm not waiting around for like the perfect opportunity. Seize the moment if you want to. Seize the moment if you can. Seize the moment if you built a path to have enough confidence to take what you want, because it's there. In all ways. Like I don't, like for like things that I'm scared to do, I don't wait for the perfect time to do it. Like I am confident in my abilities to sort it out, even if it's not the perfect time. I feel like a lot of people waste their life waiting. I wanted to have a fulfilling life. I already knew what it was like to have a non-fulfilling life for like a long time and to be a shell of a human. And I've done pretty much the opposite of every single choice that I've made up until, you know, when I was like in my like, I don't know, 16 to like mid 30s. I just kind of I did the reverse of all those things that I did, and I'm just trying to see how that works out. And it's working out a lot better for fulfillment for myself in like all different ways of my life. And so if I'm only gonna wait for love in order to have like a sexual connection that like gives me great sex, like I'm gonna be waiting for a fucking long time, and that is so not like acceptable to me. Like I want to take back, like if I die tomorrow, like I knew that I did in all of the ways in which I make choices, I was trying to have the most fulfilled life. And you might not think that pursuing sex is part of life fulfillment, but I can tell you what, it's very, very fulfilling, even trying to pursue something like this in a way that makes you happy when you've spent 10 years just accepting the L on it. Take the loss, and this is just a category of a connection that is just not happening. Just the journey that I have been doing, even if I don't even have some good sex, just me putting actions towards what I think for myself personally And I say that over and over again because what gets me going is totally different sexually than what gets somebody else going, right? So I keep reiterating, for me personally, that just putting actions towards doing that, because like I feel like it's very, very, very like important to just have the goal, but to be like ballsy enough to like really go after that list. Really go after that list of intention. I intentionally want to create this in my life. How do you do that? So you've been seeing me try to do that. I make all my decisions based upon what I intentionally have chosen. And so there's parts of my life that are like, it's getting to the part where I've made a similar choice over and over and over again to put these priorities in place. And to put these priorities ahead of just letting things happen to me. And you know what? Things actually have a way of happening in how you envisioned it, because you're just making choices that go to this peak place, right? The more and more and more you get to experience life how you desire it, the more at peace you are with everything, I'm finding. So it just feels incredible, even if I'm not at a place of like completion of this sexual exploration, of like answering how do I achieve the best sex with somebody. I have no freaking clue. Like I still don't know, and I've been trying to actively do it for a while. I know a lot more than I knew, and the little things that have happened to me along the way of getting to just this part have been so fulfilling. It's like I have gained such confidence with myself, just like being comfortable in my skin. Just by like putting myself in uncomfortable situations and like understanding how I deal with them. It's hard to explain. As I've accepted like the process, I just get kind of like more comfortable in who I am, because it just feels good to pursue things with intentions that I've chosen. And I don't even care if like my chosen things to pursue in my life are not what people value outside of my brain. I don't care at all. It just feels really good in order to like, I feel like you've seen me become, I feel like, a different kind of person. I don't know, within the past like 6 months or so. Like I'm just I'm more myself, but I'm also more myself in front of other people, and it's kind of like coming to a head, I guess, as far as like people seeing that I'm comfortable with myself. Like I don't have to sit here and prove it. It just comes across. It just is my vibe. And because it's my vibe, I'm also actually just achieving what I wanted to achieve to begin with. It's like, it's so crazy. I'm just getting better and better and better at like being myself, and then other people are seeing like, are just like that. They just like that, especially guys. They just like that. And when I don't compromise myself, and it's not even like I have to demand respect anymore. They just kind of give it because they can see that they should respect me. Like it's not, I don't have to fight for that anymore. Like the people that I pick and the people that pick me back, they just respect me. And if they don't respect me, and then I'm comfortable enough in my own skin now that I can set my boundaries and I can walk away if they're not being respected. For example, I had some things that were kind of tough that I'm super glad that I've tried to pursue sex this way. that's not attached to love. And I want to kind of give you a couple examples. So I think it's important for me to explain to you that because I have listened to what I want and gone after that, it feels bad when suddenly I'm aware that I'm off track, because I've chosen this kind of way of thinking and following my actions, and like the consistency of just going to pursue something that I find satisfying. When something throws me off track, it feels weird and it feels uncomfortable. Instead of people pleasing, it makes me and feeling comfortable. Like that used to be where my comfort zone was. I would people please and I wouldn't know how to advocate for myself, and advocating for myself like made friction with people that were used to me people pleasing, and friction within myself of like, oh, I feel a little bit shameful, kind of, you know, being a little bit selfish. I thought that I should be totally selfless and that would get me as far as it needed to get me. I was wrong. It was following my inner compass of what I defined as something satisfying. So when I would get external things happen, like people would treat me a certain way and I would respond back with them. And if I didn't respond back on an authentic level, I would feel uncomfortable, because it was different than how I would normally interact, because I would normally interact with my own self-interest. So this is hard to explain, but it felt uncomfortable for me because I was off track with following what I thought was satisfying. Like it gave me a little bit of an ick when it wasn't satisfying in the same way that I'd been consistently making choices and putting actions towards it. Like if finally I'd flipped the switch where like I didn't have any more shame on just pursuing things that I found satisfying. And remember that what I'm pursuing that is satisfying is not always purely 100% selfish. I have a good balance of a give and take within myself. I have a good balance of being dominant and submissive. I have a good balance of understanding and letting myself be an alpha and then letting myself be a beta in any situation, right? So like I've been on both extremes where I was totally selfless and then totally selfish. Like I know when to give and take. And so what I find satisfying is not just taking. What I find personally satisfying is a good balance of the give and take in all ways. And so if somebody was trying to just take from me and I would just give to them consistently, it would ring a little bell in my head that was like, the balance is off. It's not a give and take, it's just a give. And we're back to just the give. This is only good for a little while, but like my little spidey senses would be like, our path is wrong. It's not a balance anymore. We're gearing towards, being taken over, right? Like I would get uncomfortable. And so I would fight back to have it more in balance. And I would open my mouth and I would say, no, you need to respect my boundaries. And before I would never do that. I would never communicate that I had boundaries. I didn't even know I had some boundaries, and I didn't even know I should tell somebody my boundaries. I had massive guilt on that. I don't know why. I just thought that I should go throughout life just being adaptable to other people, and that people should not have to adapt to me. Like it takes kind of balls to kind of like say your boundaries to somebody. But I knew for a fact that I could enforce them if I wasn't in love with them. Like I've kind of hedged my little bet here. So why is it important that I learned how to do this when love wasn't involved? Because I want to be able to not lose myself if I ever do fall in love. So these little experiments that I've had, while they're nice to like learn who I am and learn about what I like sexually, it's also preparing me to like fight for the balance and to keep that when I actually want to be in love with the person. Like I like, it's like intentional. I don't want to just be a giver just because I'm in love. Because I know what that's like. I eventually just lose myself. I don't take. Like I go to a place where I'm like a shell of myself. And so these little interactions that I've had, while uncomfortable along the process of learning how to exert my dominance in all those kinds of ways that you can and not just be a giver, it's been uncomfortable for me. But it's more comfortable for me now to have a nice balance. Like that the balance of it feels comfortable. And so recently there was a point in time where I was being disrespected. And had I thought that I was going to ruin the relationship with him, I would have never said, "You're disrespecting me right now." I would have been scared. But because like the relationship part of us wasn't being hung over my head, like I didn't care if he went away. I can find another person to have sex with. That's easy. But to clarify, I'm not just trying to have just sex to have sex. Like it's more complicated than that. It has to fulfill my other things of what I like about the whole concept of choosing somebody to enjoy this experience with. It's like, it has to be in the way that I like. So anyways, I knew that finding another person that fulfilled those things would be not as easy as just finding another person to have sex, but it's still easier to find than finding another person to be in love with that you're going to marry. Like I was choosing people and like I was playing at a level that was not the highest stakes anymore. I still personally believe that I want to, if I ever want to marry, that I want to marry with the intentions of forever. And so this is like, I'm practicing these things on how to be myself in a relationship that involves this kind of close thing, right? It's not just about my pleasure. It's about learning how to be me authentically within this and receiving and giving. It's a learning that balance and how to maintain that balance and what to do when that balance is thrown off. So anyways, he disrespected me, but because I didn't care if he went away and because we weren't attached to like love, I was like, dude, you're disrespecting me. If you want to like, you know, hang out with me for this reason, even if it's for this reason, you have to respect my time. You have to respect me. And you're not currently right now by your actions. Like I point blank said that to him. And you know what? The next time that we were interacting, he managed my expectations like a champ. He managed my time like a champ. And we actually had some great sex. And it was fabulous. The whole thing was like exactly what I wanted to kind of experience with somebody. And I don't think that that would have been possible had I just never adapted to what I'm doing now. And it doesn't have to make sense to you because the process of achieving this same level of like kind of peace within your like sexual pillar or whatever might be different for you. Like the starting place might be totally different than how I started, but I had to do all these things to kind of have like a sense of peace in like what I'm doing. So hopefully that makes sense. It's like, I just want you to see that there are different ways that you can have like a peace and like a satisfaction and like a healthy connection with somebody, and it doesn't have to be just what we think about. It's more complicated than that. And I think it's a fun process to kind of experience. I personally needed this time to experience what it was like pushing back. I needed this time to really know who I was without compromise, without being leveraged. That's kind of like what the love part about it was for me. Like the love kind of thing, like a little bit leverages me. Like they can use that against me, because I would clearly do a lot for love in the name of love. I think my birthday book, my birthday book actually says that. I think I want to read that to you. I got this book from Renee, and in this book, there is a little blurb about what you're like personally. And my little blurb about what I am like is like broken up into like a couple. This is like a side note that we're gonna just like kind of explore down for a minute, and then I'll get into my example of another way in which I am using this time in order to really keep myself healthy. All right, February 24th. Many tragedies are enacted in the name of love. I can attest to that. The losing myself, or the full shell person that I was such a tragedy. Many tragedies are enacted in the name of love. My card, by the way, for my day, February 24th, is the Lovers. If you're into tarot at all, my card for that entire day is the Lovers. For example, February 19th is the Sun. So every day has its own kind of like card. January 10th is the Wheel of Fortune. But anyways, so I feel like it's interesting. I know this weakness about myself, or it used to be a weakness, and now it's kind of like something that I am tentatively trying to explore in a way that I'm not so prone to losing myself. And the way that I've done it is I've taken the whole idea of sex attached to love, connected, only connected that way, and I've kind of like tried to explore relationships on the sexual part where it's not so like attached to being in a highly committed relationship where it's very much in love. So it just means that I understand what a good sexual experience would be like without being afraid that they're not going to love me if it's not good, or if I kind of ask for something different or whatever. Like there's no, because I used to sacrifice everything in the name of love. I want to know what that's like in when I don't have love attached to that. But I still have feelings attached to it. It's not like it's super cold like porn could be or whatever, right? It's not like that. It's just like a different level of connection that's not so extreme. That's how I've learned how to advocate for myself, because I'm not doing it in the name of love. And hopefully that will help me have a more healthy balance when I am in love, because I have instances of having been challenged and challenging back and being kind of like used to that experience, and it's not uncomfortable for me to do that. And so this is really part of like the whole sex thing is really part of like understanding who I am. And it's not just like, oh, I'm talking about it to like talk about it. It's like a big integral part of who I'm becoming in all different ways. It trickles down into how I feel about, you know, everything. So anyways, and like who I pursue and who I give my time to, and like all these things, and who I present as. I had an experience recently where I noticed something that was not right. I noticed something that was not right with somebody, and I could ignore it, and our sexual relationship would pretty much stay the same. Or I could say something about it, and I could kind of indicate that I had a problem, and our sexual relationship would pretty much be done. at this point in time that I'd noticed something. Our sex was getting pretty good. And so, like, I didn't want to ruin it just to like I did kind of him and haw. I was like, do I want to say something? But it's like, at a certain point, what I noticed was more important to stay true to and to honor than to just greedily have some good sex with somebody. It would be compromised sex. It would be kind of sex that was like in the back of my head, like, I know I shouldn't be having because of what I noticed. So, had I also been in love with that person, I would have been scared that they would have left me had I said something. And so I have now another example, another experience under my belt where I have opened my mouth and ruined something that wasn't ruined by them first. At the end of the day, all of my experiences that I'm trying to actively pursue, it's in the name of it being mutually healthy or mutually respectful. Whenever I involve myself with somebody, that's like in the back of my head, I want that balance. And so I saw, even though our sex was going good, in fact, it was actually like improving, it ruined things. And I'm glad that I said it, because it wasn't following a balance of respect, a balance kind of thing. So, it's nice for me. It's just nice for me to like have not a scarcity mindset anymore. It's nice for me to know that I have, like accumulation of all of these little skills in order to like pursue what I want to in an intentional way. And I keep saying that because it's super intentional. I just don't fall into bed with these people. I don't just like, you know, make these videos with no intentions. Like, they're super intentional. I just like the process. I just like the process of what's been going on lately. I'm getting closer and closer to what I think is fulfilling. And that's manifesting like with how my body responds. That's manifesting with how my brain is so creative right now. It's so like happy. And it's not because I'm having great sex. It's because I'm not even having great sex, by the way. Like, I still have a long way to go on like how to achieve that. But I'm like past the hurdle of where I used to be when I first started this process, because I'm way more authentic in how I present and who I am with these people and the people that I pick. Like, it's just super evolved. And as an outsider, you could see that maybe I'm doing this exact same things that I was, but that's not actually true. I'm not actually doing the exact same things that I was. Like, I go on a Tinder date, I have some sex. That's the exact same thing that I used to do, but it's completely different. And I hope that you kind of see that. I'm like eons above where I started in the process. And I have like an understanding of why the process is the way it is for me, and that I'm getting something out of it. And I actually see progress. There's like, I'm like very proud of like ending things with people when I'm on the path that I wanted to be. I wanted to keep having some good sex with that person, but I didn't want to have it if it was going to be compromised. And there was no point in compromising if I could just go get it some more. Like, I've completely reworked how I see this whole thing. And I'm getting more and more experience with just being true to myself. And I think that's, you couldn't really ask for more from an experience than to teach you how to be more yourself and how to like just feel better in your skin. And it just feels really good. Doesn't even matter what happens. I've had some really crappy things happen lately, and I think it's just like a testament to like where I am, of like how I handled it and how like my system and like the people that I've surrounded myself with. Like I thought about that too the other day. I'm like, I'm almost at the pinnacle, not the pinnacle, because I think you can still get more close to people, but like I'm really proud of like the people that I am like surrounded by. I feel like it's just very connecting, and I've continuously made choices to like get more and more connected instead of feeling alone in my little island of like I don't know who I am, and like being very frustrated. I used to live very frustrated, sexually frustrated that nobody saw me as like the person who I was or am. I didn't even see myself who I am. I've been thinking a lot about this. It's like, oh, was I like kind of like a sleeping dragon? Like that seems weird to say, but that's how I used to like, I didn't know if it was the chicken or the egg thing. It's like during my time with my toxic relationship, I was such a shell of myself. In fact, there was one point in time where it was like really bad, really bad. And I had no ambitions, I had no goals. I had reached the level of adapting to our sex life where I was no longer getting any more fulfillment from just giving. And I was just really unhappy, and I like was having panic attacks, and I never really had panic attacks in all my life, but it was like peak bad. And my boyfriend, fiance at the time, he like saw, he wasn't blind, but he like saw, and he like kind of like talked to me one night. He's like, Michelle, you I can pay to have you talk with like a career counselor. I can pay to have somebody like kind of like help you with direction, and like it seems like you're directionless, and I'm really worried. And so like he would do those nice kinds of things to like kind of like help me, because I do think that he really cared about me personally. I just don't think he saw how his actions actually contributed to my shell of a person. But my actions contributed to a shell of a person too. So anyways, he was trying to help me that night, but I was so frustrated that I was like, I'm only a shell because you took everything I gave, right? I'm like only a shell because I have nothing left to give. I've just given in all ways that I've ever given, and I'm just empty. I'm just done. I'm just tapped out, and I have no, like he thought that I just had no ambition, like that I would forever be kind of ambitionless. And I feel like that's like, nobody really worries about that for me now. But like, I'm always like, was I a sleeping dragon? Was I always like how I am now? But I was just in a survival situation, and like I was just very suppressed in all ways. And like once the external factors changed, the things that were suppressing me changed, that I was able to just lift up and kind of, you know, be who I am, and kind of follow that progress instead of like the spiral downwards. I don't know if I had, I think I always had it in me. I'm kind of trying to like see that as I'm making this video. I think I always had it in me because my level of adaptation was fucking next level. I was so resilient my entire life, and that happens from like somebody who has fire in them, right? Like I refused to be broken. I like just had very warped ideas of like how to achieve success. I thought you just sacrificed until you achieved success, because I kind of saw that as like the method that was useful. Like I saw that, and I mirrored that method. And it wasn't until I was by myself that I realized that that method wasn't my method that I liked, and it wasn't even helpful, even if it wasn't my method. Like that method sucks without balance. That method sucks if you just are a giver. That method completely freaking sucks. So I had to learn that, the whole thing, on my own. And I had to learn that in my own way. But I want to kind of explain to you what it was like at the very peak of like, I did everything in my power to give to everyone, and I lost myself. And it was because everything was so high stakes. I didn't know how to make friends without being a total friend giver. I didn't know how to ask for what I wanted or needed in a relationship that involved friends. I didn't know how to take back. I just knew how to like provide, right? I didn't know how to do all these other things. And so at the end, I was like, well, if I can't be leveraged anymore, if I can be okay with no friends, then it doesn't matter if they go away, if I push back, right? It doesn't matter if they go away, if I ask for something, then they don't want to give it and they stop being my friend. I used to be really, really like scared of like making people upset, and therefore they would go away. Like the way to keep them in my life was to provide this thing. And it's like, Michelle, you need to keep you in your life. You need to provide this thing for you. And so I've been learning the balance of that. And through my pursuit of how to have better sex for myself, of what I define as good sex, it's taught me all these things. So that is why I talk about sex like it's normal, because it is normal to me. And I don't think that it's like this thing that should be like not talked about. It's a very big part of your identity. So anyways, that is the context that I wanted to give you today. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that it made more sense now. But if it doesn't, just keep watching. Maybe it will make more sense. Thank you for spending time with me, and I will see you guys in my next video.